Starfruit?
Doesn't it look kind
the
of smart?
smartest fruit?
Today we're talking about mindless zombies and thinking fruit. So there's a bit of a debate going on here in the studio.
Yeah, I think
Jokes.
I
It's
think
grapes.
eggplants are
as
probably
to
the smartest
exactly what the smartest fruit is.
But like, just picture a grape in your mind, like grapes. No, like a full thing of grapes.
Is you view it as
It's
one guy?
intimidating me.
fruit. Like it's like a hive mind thing, I guess.
It's intimidating. Like I feel
So each individual grape has
it's
a mind.
very intellectual.
And then all of the minds together are working
It's just
to...
one intellectual.
It's one mind. The grape. The whole bunch is one mind.
I could make a Catholic metaphor, but I won't.
I think intelligent things taste bad, so I think Brussels sprouts are probably the most intelligent.
So knowledge to you is
It's a vegetable.
distasteful?
I
Yeah,
keep
it's a
saying vegetables.
vegetable.
I've said like nothing but vegetables.
Maybe just vegetables themselves.
Yeah, like we don't like eating each other, right? I feel like if we tasted good, we'd still be doing it.
On today's episode, we are going to try and prove to you that fruits and vegetables, rocks and tennis rackets have minds. But we've got to start by figuring out just what exactly it is that separates us from zombies.
Wait, are you saying that zombies exist?
Um,
It sounds like he's saying they exist.
no, I'm not today is not that day. Theoretically, we are going to talk about theoretical zombies.
Oh.
Yeah, which we need to make sense of how we are not zombies. So I guess I'm saying zombies don't exist.
Theoretically.
And why they don't exist.
Theoretical zombies exist. So this all has to do with brains, but it's also something that's a bit bigger, or at least a bit different from brains. Something we call consciousness. Deep breath. Riley inhaled sharply. Some of us like to think of consciousness and our brains as being the same thing, but actually not so much. Somewhere between them, a gap opens up a mile wide, and when we dive down into it and swim deep, we can start poking around under rocks and winding our way through dark caves to look for a real possibility for the existence of what we're calling the immortal mind, or the soul.
Awesome, I can't wait.
Before we get started here, James just wants to say some thanks, issue some of our thanks to our new patrons.
Yeah, we'd like to thank Ian, Kevin, and Corin on Patreon. Ian donated when we got the pledge right, so that was nice. If anyone else would like to issue us a Patreon challenge, apparently we are open for business.
Yes, yeah. Ian said if we could, we mentioned this on the last episode. He said if we could get the pledge, we always mess up the pledge at the beginning, we the members, and he said if we could get it right, he would make a donation, and so he did. So I guess if you would like to challenge us,
Yeah.
just send us a message on Facebook.
Lead
or
with the
Twitter.
carrot, if you will.
All right.
We'd like to thank our listeners on Stitcher who have pushed us past the 10,000 mark.
Yes, we are officially as popular as my dog's podcast.
And we'd like to remind our iTunes listeners to give us a rating, even if you just think we're okay. We're collecting stars, and we'll take however many you're willing to give us.
Yes, preferably 3 or more.
Yes.
Yeah, but we need as many stars as we can get so that we can get to heaven.
Yeah, that's how we...
That's
yeah,
how
we
you
just
get
gotta
to
keep-
heaven,
yeah.
yeah, if you have a podcast. My name is Rob Thompson. I am here with Olivia Littoral,
Hey.
Grand Master of our Secret Order of Alchemical Actors. Today we're talking big thoughts on what it means to be conscious. Joining us in discussion we have Riley Claxton
Hi.
and James Kaplangis.
Greetings, Earthlings.
This is the second part of our series on whether the soul is logically possible, here on Occult Confessions. We, the members of the Secret Order of Alchemical Actors,
do solemnly commit ourselves to a full and honest telling of the history of the occult as far as we know it.
Here's our thesis, our hypothesis for today.
I love it when you get science.
You are not your brain.
Oh, great. Good to know.
Let that sink in for a minute. Olivia's already got it.
Yep.
But for everyone else, Riley, James, let that sink in. You are not your brain. In modern society, we've sort of adopted this idea that we, the person we are, is actually this little version of ourselves inside a control room in our heads.
Right.
Right.
Exactly.
Feeling good about that. Pulling levers and flipping switches. Is this what's happening in your head right now?
I
I
don't
thought
think
so.
mine is moving fast enough. Nearly fast
This
enough.
little guy inside your head making all the things happen that go to make up your life, how your body interacts with the world. This little guy is flipping the switch. You move your arm, you move your leg, you look at this way, you look that way. And that's how we think about the way we interact with the world. We think that deep down we're this person, this little voice in our head, this homunculus.
Love that word.
Mm.
It's such a good word.
So a homunculus.
What does that mean?
Yeah, what is that?
Please.
I was just trying to nod
Inform me.
and like, oh yeah, homunculus.
Yeah, I sort of preempted the question. I could see it on your faces. A homunculus is exactly what we're talking about here. It's this little being manipulating sort of inert matter to do as it pleases. So your body would be the inert matter that is manipulated by the little tiny homunculus voice or spirit. The body itself has no mind or spirit of its own.
I am the homunculus.
You are the homunculus, and you aren't your body. There's a separation there.
Yeah.
Which is why it's
My new
interesting when
Instagram
you,
bio.
Yeah,
You
when
are
you bring
not
the
your
Kabbalah into it, and then you're like a channel for magical energy. So
Cool. Maybe some of you can hear just how strange all of this sounds when I put it this way. James?
Now that you say it, I guess I really should reevaluate my life. But yeah, they told me in elementary school that I was just a guy pulling levers in my head, telling my brain what to do to my body.
And what did you say?
I said, right on. That's how I'm going to think about it for the rest of my life until Rob tells me otherwise.
Orthodox Greeks.
did you go to public school? No.
Let's start with a little Latin phrase that gives us a sense of where we got this idea in the first place. It's cogito ergo sum.
It's the motto.
Comes from Rene Descartes. Means I think, therefore I am. He lived from 1596 to 1650. That means he was just a little kid when Shakespeare died, but he was dead himself a year before Louis XIV took the throne in France and did things like, build Versailles and
You know,
dance
casual.
the ballet. He lived at the same time as Molière and Corneille, for my theater fans. It was the heyday of Europe's colonization of the Americas, pretty much in the space between the Renaissances and the Enlightenment. In addition to being a philosopher, he was also an astronomer. He was a scientist, even though we sort of didn't have a category for scientist at this point in history. And he was a mathematician. He is the inventor of modern geometry.
Ew.
I think that's really cool.
PTSD.
Yeah. Descartes' rule of signs, the Cartesian.
You know what,
what's it called?
James?
The Cartesian, what's it called? It's
Yeah, that's what we call it
The
in
coordinate-
the math tutor.
That's what
Bible.
I called it.
in the math, yes. James is a math fan.
That shouldn't even, you shouldn't need to say that. Math fan.
He's a major dude, Rene Descartes, which is why he gets his own adjective, Cartesian, the Cartesian coordinate plane.
With the X and Y axis.
Right.
It's good stuff.
Ah.
Like Aristotelian, Platonic, Marxist, all these are major dudes, get their own major dude adjective. In theater and performance, we have Brechtian. There's a big abstraction we also call Cartesian in addition to the Cartesian coordinate plane, and that abstraction is dualism.
Ooh.
Cartesian dualism.
Ooh.
And this,
Damn.
We need some music.
you're the Cartesian fangirls.
Yes.
Ooh.
We're one of the
I'm a
woo
groupie.
girls. We're the woo girls.
The woo girls. This is the idea
Girls
that
Gone Wild
I am
for
a
Cartesian.
mind and a body. I am both a mind and a body. I am not a mind-body or a body-mind. I am two things. It's a uniquely Western idea. It goes all the way back to the cogito argument. Descartes said that the only thing we can be sure of is that we think. I think, therefore I am. For all we know, we could just be brains in jars dreaming the world. Or as Descartes said, the world itself could be an illusion conjured by some mischievous demon or evil genius.
What?
Would that really be that bad, though?
This is what Rob told his baby when I came into the world.
Yeah, I just wanted to
The
let her
origin
know.
story.
Breaking down my universe right now.
Before we
This
get
world is
started
just an
here,
illusion.
it's entirely possible that
Before
this
we
could
get
all be an
started
illusion.
here.
I mean, I've told you multiple times that this is all a hologram being projected from the moon by the reptilians. So you're
We'll
just
fit it into
you're just
every
feeding into
episode.
what I already think.
See if you can get them to bump us past 5,000 on Stitcher.
I'm working on it, but they're really busy trying to eat us. So
Can we have a Patreon part of just we clip out all of the times she's mentioned reptilians throughout the podcast and we put it all together in one?
That is an intensive job, Riley. I'm glad you volunteered to do that.
don't encourage me.
Evil henchman!
Yes, evil genius.
I'd like to do something evil.
Oh, what were you in the mood for?
Well, what have you got?
We could manipulate the weather
What for?
for global domination.
A whole globe? Sounds like too much work. Oh, I've got it! I've got this brain I've been keeping in a jar. Let's make it think things that aren't really there.
Is that evil?
It's pretty evil.
So everything that happens in the brain's imagination will be terrible, like an extended nightmare of horrors and pain?
Well, some things will be painful, like falling off bicycles and getting dumped by your 8th grade girlfriend.
Okay.
But some things will be good, like ice cream and puppies.
What?
And some things are neither here nor there, like car tires and aluminum siding. But I don't think you're getting the evil part. None of it's real. None of it. At all.
Okay, well, let's do that, I guess.
Cool.
If everything were made up by such a genius, how would we know? All we can know is that we know, that we think. I think, therefore I am. This leads us to make a kind of wild conclusion that many of us actually hold deep down, even though we're not aware of it. We think that we are not our bodies.
Is that funny to you, Olivia?
Philosophy after no sleep is fun.
Is philosophy.
Yeah. Yeah, okay. We're not our bodies.
If
Got
you
it.
lost an arm, are you still you?
And me without an arm.
You without an arm. What if you lost the use of your arms and your legs?
Then someone needs to just take me out, because
No, don't say that, Olivia. You'd still be fun. I'd still hang out with you.
what
Okay.
what would we do, James? Just
Watch TV, I guess.
You could
I
go
could
places.
feed you.
that sounds great. Riley's gonna feed me and
Would
James
still be
will watch
us.
TV.
What if you were blind and deaf? Are you still you?
You are.
Yeah.
What if you were born without a face?
Oh.
What do you mean?
Like it's like
by
a
that?
more like
Somehow you are blank from the neck up.
like you're
Just
Am I
blank.
an X-Men?
Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah.
The way you
Great.
interact with the world is different.
But
But
are
you're not
you
different.
still you?
I would be different, maybe.
But
I guess
are
I
you
would
you?
I would be conscious.
Would you be not James?
How do you define
you
what
just
James
a
is?
different-
Rob, I need you to tell me what
How
I
do you
am.
define? Tell me what I am now.
In the Western world, we tend to think, yeah, I'm still me. Even without the arm, even without both arms, even without both legs, even without the eyes, even without the ears, there's still a me in there, inside this vessel. I'm not my body. But actually, you kind of are your body. If you were blind or became blind, or if you lost the use of a limb, this completely shapes the way you engage with and think about the world.
Right.
Right?
So we were
you guys
all-
were sort of anticipating this line of thought. If you're missing a leg, for example, stairs take on a new meaning. But also escalators and chairs and stools and shoes and soccer balls, which changes who you are, changes your identity. You would experience a soccer ball differently than someone with 2 legs. Your experience of the world becomes something new, which then makes you something new. So maybe you're not as separate from your body as we tend to think. Let me invoke the work of Alva Noe, one of my favorite contemporary philosophers.
That's a great name.
Yeah.
Sounds like
Smart
a
guy.
philosopher.
Elven.
He argues in a book that I recommend to our listeners because it is very accessible. Not all of his books are necessarily very accessible. He is a philosopher after all. But he has a book called Out of Our Heads. And he argues in this book that consciousness arises through a joint operation between our bodies, our brains, and the world. He says we do well to think about the brain like a musical instrument. It's a great metaphor. The musical instrument doesn't create music on its own. He's talking about the brain here, not the body. The brain is the musical instrument. The brain does not act on its own. It needs a musician, a player. We play our brains as instruments that help us to engage with and make sense of the world. And our brains can't play themselves. Let's think about the act of seeing. We use our brains to make sense of our visual field, which we experience through the physical apparatus of our eyes. Our eyes, our body, are very specific organs that can see a certain depth and range of the world around us and a particular spectrum of colors. There are more colors than we can physically see, right? Just as there's more space than our eyes can see at a time. That's easier for us to grasp, right?
Yeah.
We don't see all the space around us. Like there's a whole bunch of space behind me right now that I can't see, but it's there.
Because we're predators, we got eyes in the front of our face.
Eyes in the front of our face that have limitations to them, which then shape the way I experience the world. They shape our conception of what can be seen and what it means to see. They don't do any thinking on their own, our eyes, but we can't think about sight or what it means to see without them. They shape vision. Our bodies determine the possibilities available for us to interact with and make sense of the world around us. One leg or two legs or three legs. One eye or two eyes or colorblind eyes. The world is a different place, and we are different people because of the way our bodies function. They shape the way our brains understand. The same goes for the world our gaze falls on. What if we were seeing, but there was nothing to look at? What if we existed in a world without light? Or if there was nothing to see with, what would the experience of sight be like? The brain's job is to make sense of what we're seeing so that we can move through it or choose another means of engaging with the world. Is that a lion over there? And is that lion a threat to my life? Or is it just a painting on the wall? Or is it just a shadow cast by some harmless shrubbery? Could be any of these things. Our visual experience, in concert with our brains, working through the world, is making sense of things. We aren't this little person. You should be suspicious anytime you hear someone on the news or some infotainment program, which we are not infotainment.
No, not infotainment.
We are info.
Yes.
Also some tainment.
Hopefully.
Yeah. Make a statement, but we're not infotainment.
No.
We're above that.
It's like hyphenated.
Right. Information entertainment.
Yes. Incorporated.
TM.
Damn it.
When you hear someone on the news or some infotainment program below the level of occult confessions make a statement about what the brain does, you need to be suspicious. People like to use phrases like the brain sees color like this or the brain interprets music like that.
The brain's not doing that.
No, we are.
Right.
We with our bodies. We playing our brains as musical instruments. All right, let's shift gears. We're going to wind our way around to the theories of David Chalmers on the philosophy of consciousness. Major guy in the last 20, 30 years in the way we think about how the conscious brain works. Okay, but before we get to Chalmers, first we just talk about this guy, Francis Crick, who you may have heard of as the co-discoverer of DNA with James Watson, Rosalind Franklin, and Maurice Wilkins. He has since made a foray into neuroscience, and in the early 1990s, he made the argument along with co-neuroscientist Christoph Koch that neural oscillations in the cerebral cortex, I promise we won't do this for very long, seemed to match up with an individual being or becoming aware of experiences of sight or smell.
I have no idea what you just said.
It's a binding process is what they're trying to say. Binding is how we bring together separate ideas about an object into one thought. The red strawberry is delicious. So we have this object, strawberry. The separate concepts about it are that it is red and that it is delicious. Binding happens in our brain in this way they're talking about with these neural oscillations to bring these thoughts together. So when we interact with the strawberry, those facts are available to us. Developing an abstract concept or awareness of a sensation and binding sensations together is not the same as experiencing those sensations, though, is the point we want to get around to.
Because that's could be a bad thing.
Yeah, it's like how racism happens.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yes. Or it's just basically how your mind works. So any good or bad thought you might have
Right, you could
Is
just
this-
bind
is
together
the result of
anything.
binding, yeah.
Judgment in
Yeah.
general.
The neuroscientific argument is that your experiences can all be reduced down to the firing of electrical impulses in your brain, as in this binding. Seeing the color is the same as the firing of particular impulses in particular parts of the brain that relate to the experience of seeing that color.
I don't buy that.
But then how do we know our own thoughts are true?
We
If that's
don't.
all that's happening, if all that's going on up there is just chemicals firing off, then how can I trust what I'm saying? How can I trust that it's true if that's all that's simply happening? I'm sorry, that just annoys me.
Yeah, how can you keep going with that idea?
That-
Riley? I'm
that if-
trying to latch on you.
That if my brain is all I am, if that's it, if this is just my brain, then
The evil genius theory.
yes, then it was never meant for thinking in a way, if that makes any sense. Sorry, I'm just...
You mean
Like-
independent thought?
Yeah.
Yes, that it's simply just...
Organic
it's
matter doing
simply
its
just
thing.
chemistry and,
Yeah.
and things firing off and chemicals. So
you're saying
if
how
that's
can you trust?
so
what
how can
you're-
anything that I'm saying, how can I trust any of that to be true if this is simply just all that's happening? It's
Well,
like
I don't think it's not true, because we ruminate and we make things up all the time about what we think people think about us and all that's
Fine.
not
Yes.
real and not based in reality or observations. But we do have a lot of reality that happens through our observations.
But what I'm trying to say is, like, if I took your cup here and it's like expecting me to take that cup and spill it over, and it creates a map of this campus, if that makes any sense. It's just a bunch of stuff going on in here. So how can I trust any of that to be true, or what I'm talking about to make any kind of sense if that's all that's happening?
Let's
get
see
what
if we
you're
can work our way around.
Yeah. Sorry.
No, this is good. This is good. I'm going to borrow a bit from the philosopher Thomas Nagel here, who's one of my favorites. Also another favorite of mine. So this whole series, these are all my favorite philosophers. I love all of these guys. He says that the way we need to think about this is through the problem of water being H2O. So the neuroscientific argument is that electrical impulses are your thoughts. And Nagel says they are, but not in the way that water is H2O. So what is H2O? What does that mean?
It's a chemical.
Dihydrogen monoxide.
Yes, 2 parts hydrogen, right?
Yes,
Yeah.
1 part oxygen, is water. If you do that with molecules, you literally have water.
Yeah, but
Yeah.
just the basic form of water, not water as we know of all the minerals and whatnot. in
Well,
it.
fair enough, yeah. But the point he's making is that when you say water is H2O, that's correct. That is a correct statement. Both things describe the same thing. When you say that the firing of neurons in your brain is your thought, it's actually not the same thing.
No, because you can observe that, right?
Well, and because they're literally 2 different things. A physical event in your brain and the thought are not, right? You're thinking, and that's not the physical firing. They're not literally the same thing. There's an event happening in your brain, of course, when you're thinking, but that's not the same as the thought that you're having. The thought that you're having
Yes.
is your thought. It's in your head. It's not a firing. Do you see what I mean?
Yeah. Yes,
Exactly.
absolutely.
So you
They're
can't even
different.
use the whole, like, your thought is just firing in your brain to prove that, because you're proving yourself wrong by trying to prove the fact that that your thought is simply, that firing in your brain, because you're saying that that's all it is. If that's all it is, then you're not. Yeah.
Even if there's a causal relationship between the firing of the neurons in your brain and the experience is not the same as the physical action in your brain. Let's take a moment for Mary.
Okay.
This is the Mary thought experiment.
Hi, I'm Dr. Mary M. Nerdpants, neuroscientist and color expert. I know everything there is to know about what it's like to experience the color red. I've memorized a full list of things that are red and conducted complete chemical and subatomic analyses with reference to wave functions of how the color red manifests in the world.
But here's the deal. Mary has lived all her life in a black and white laboratory and has never actually seen the color red. She knows everything there is to know about the color, but she doesn't know what it's like to see it. So one day, Mary finds her way out of the lab in an effort to complete her full study of the color red. Immediately, she encounters a big red balloon. She sees the color red for the first time, and it introduces new information, new knowledge and understanding into her life.
Wow, I mean, it's just so red.
So is seeing red the thought?
Oh, it's like going to school and learning about business. But
Well, I'm
then once
trying
you're
to-
in it, the experience of it.
Right, I'm trying to compare it to
something
which
different.
one is
Something
the brain
different.
and which one's the thought.
The firing of the neurons, theoretically, is all this information that she
Right.
has about the color red.
And then actually the thought is actually experiencing red
Actually
for the first
experiencing it
time.
is a separate
Yes.
thing.
Okay, right.
There's something new, something different about
Yeah.
experience. Even though she knew everything about what it was like to see the color red, the experience of the color is adding something, changing something about her store of knowledge. There's something about experiencing things in the world that we can't reduce down to an explanation of the brain states those experiences cause. Mary knows everything about the neural firings that happen when you see the color red. She's memorized this stuff. It's in her head. But she doesn't understand the color red fully until she sees it. There's some new information she gets when she actually encounters the color itself.
It happens all the time. It's just like, oh, well, you'll understand it. You just got to do it. Or you'll get
Experience
yeah.
is the best teacher. That's
It'll
just like a
push you in.
common
Yeah,
saying.
exactly.
That's
Knowing the brain state is not the same as knowing the color. This is what David Chalmers calls the hard problem. And it's been a source for some hot and heavy debate through the 90s and up to the present day. A word about sources here before we venture down this rabbit hole. David Chalmers is a philosopher's philosopher, for reals. So,
Hard to read.
not the hardest.
but hard.
But yeah, not light reading. I'm more an anthropologist and a historian. I can read Chalmers, but it takes some patience on my part. If you want to go deep right away, I suggest you his classic defense of a non-physical basis for consciousness, and that's his book, The Conscious Mind, from 1996.
You might hate
conscious
yourself
mind.
while you're reading it, like I did.
Oh, did you read?
Oh, I mean, maybe half of it,
Okay.
and then
That's
set it
impressive.
on fire, essentially.
It's also a bit old, a bit dated, but the ideas are still relevant. It's a great way to really get a handle on this side of the argument. However, if you want a slightly gentler descent into the intensity of his theory, I'd suggest the book Explaining Consciousness, The Hard Problem, which a bunch of smart people, including Chalmers and Crick, debate his ideas in a series of essays. It's sort of a lighter way to do this. Some of those essays are also pretty dense and difficult, but some of them are very accessible and easy to read. Okay, so let's get down to his ideas now. Chalmers asks us to imagine a zombie. Ah, at last, the zombie.
Oh,
The theoretical zombie.
The theoretical zombie, who does not experience things. So he says, imagine a zombie who doesn't have experiences, who interacts with the color red, but has no sense of what the color red is like. The zombie goes around seeing things, interacting with things, but is not experiencing any of it.
Like
wait,
a robot?
how is he not experiencing it if
Like
it's
a-
happening?
It's happening, but the zombie doesn't have any sense, any feelings about what anything is like.
Like a computer?
Like
A robot,
like
yeah.
A robot.
But does
Perfect.
that
Like
mean
my
that they're
phone.
not experiencing it?
They're not reflecting. They're not
Right.
having thoughts
get
on what's
that.
happening.
Feelings, impressions about it.
Because there's
but-
nothing deeper there.
Right, they're just
Right, I
seeing.
underst-
They're seeing the color, but there's no impression of the color.
Just
But
input
even though
data.
you don't understand something, I feel like you can still experience something. We do
It's
it every
experiencing
day.
in the way that we're talking about experience, as in
I know what you're saying. You're making it a reflective thing. Like he doesn't understand what is.
Well, it's not even about understanding, it's about experience. There's no feeling of what it's like to experience the thing. I don't have like strong feelings about touching this bench in front of me here, but I do have a feeling. I know what it's like. I can say this is smooth. I can say it feels like other things I've touched, etc., etc. But he's imagining a world in which we have zombies that don't have these experiences. They just go through and interact with things. They don't
But
know
don't
what it
literally-
feels like. Yeah.
But
They don't have reflections on them. They're not able to reflect on them. Just go with me, man. He says that our conscious experience of the world can be split up into two parts. Psychological, part number 1, and phenomenal. Let's talk about the psychological first. This will help, Olivia. The psychological are behavior-based. This is our ability to process information we take in through our 5 senses and do something about it. These psychological experiences don't raise any questions for us because we know why we have them. They have an obvious function in the world to help keep us alive and out of trouble. I think these are the experiences you're talking about.
Stimulus response.
Stimulus response, yeah. I see a red traffic light, and that signals to me that the traffic pattern at the intersection has changed. And so I stop my car in front of the light. I see a red strawberry, and I identify it as food, and I eat it. Food, eat, survive.
Good job.
Thanks. Our ability to make sense of things in this way is purely functional. And it's a nice and logical... it's not hard to explain why we would have these things. Very logical, evolutionary, logic. It makes good sense. If, as beings to survive, we need to be able to process information in this way and respond to stimuli as it occurs to us. But there's this other, far less useful thing that comes along with our psychological experience. And that's phenomenal experience. That's what we're coming around to with these zombies, Olivia.
Phenomenal.
Who's to say you can't eat the strawberry and then identify it as food if your brain works that way?
It's fine to identify it as food, but what's not necessary is that we should have any feelings about that food, any reflection on that food, any thought about what it's like to have a strawberry. It's not even good for our survival, really, to have food preferences. We should just eat food.
Right.
Right. It's I see a strawberry, and I'm like, it'd be nice to have a fruit, like a summer salad,
But
Right,
what if instead I see a strawberry and I think, that's weird, what's this? And I pick it up and I decide to take a bite and then I say, oh, it's food.
Psychological,
Like a
not
baby.
phenomenal. After you take that bite, you're going to say, that was good, or that was bad, or I'd like to do that again, or I wouldn't like to do that again. All that's fairly useless. Why would we need to know what it's like to eat a strawberry? All we need to know is that we have to eat it to survive. We might need to know the difference between good and, food that's edible and things that aren't edible, but this is all functional. We're talking about the qualitative difference between all things that are edible, strawberries, blueberries. We know which ones we prefer on which days. Maybe James feels like a blueberry on Wednesday and a strawberry on Thursday. This is useless. There's no reason why we should have these preferences. We can imagine a world full of zombies having psychological experiences that are not accompanied by these phenomenal experiences we're talking about. Do I have you along for the ride now, Olivia?
Yeah.
They go through life stopping at red lights and eating strawberries like they're supposed to, but all this action takes place in the dark, so to speak. There's no inner light, no experience that these zombies are having of what it's like to stop at red lights. Oh, this red light's annoying. And what it's like to eat strawberries. Oh, this strawberry is overripe.
It's Mary, knowing all of the things about red and knowing all of that, but of never having to experience
Never
it.
having experienced that thing. Let's hear from some zombies.
The life form sees the light. The life form stops the motor car when the light is red. Input, red. Output, stops the motor car. The life form sees the berry-like food item. The life form eats the berry-like food item. Eating the berry-like food item fuels the life form. Input, food item. Output, survival.
Does the zombie like the strawberry?
What is like?
The food item sustains the life form.
Does the zombie want to survive?
What is want?
The life form maintains biological processes until the life form can no longer function.
Our zombies might sound familiar, as Riley was pointing out. These days, we call them artificial intelligence. 21st century robots and supercomputers don't have thoughts and feelings the way we do. And super annoying because we're always saying that they think, that robots think. They don't actually think. They utilize complex algorithms to complete tasks on an input-output basis. Think about the computers designed to win at chess or the Chinese game of Go. They process the move made by their opponent through an incredibly large series of calculations in order to determine the best possible move given the probability. Even if these machines learn from game to game, the act of learning is just improving the computer's database of what the human's most probable move will be.
Yeah, the computer's not like, I don't like the cut of this guy's jib.
Right, or this move is not fair, or this move is
Feminine.
not challenging enough, right?
There's no
I want to
alterity.
challenge myself. A computer's not going to say that. The computer's just trying to find the best move. That's what it's learning how to do, in quotation marks. Kasparov, the famous chess player, isn't playing against a self-aware android, which is the way we tend to think about these supercomputers. He's playing against a very sophisticated calculator, essentially performing a task about which it has no feelings whatsoever. The computer doesn't jump up and down and scream when it wins. It doesn't kick over the board when it loses. It doesn't want to win. It just wants to complete the game as it was instructed. We, on the other hand, do have feelings. That computer is really just a fancy lawnmower. The lawnmower doesn't want to cut the grass. That's just what it does when we use it. So why aren't we more like lawnmowers?
I ask myself that all the time.
We have alterity.
Yes, by that you mean?
Well, we can choose things.
Yeah, and a deep fundamental difference, right?
Yeah.
A deep hiddenness, a secretness of this consciousness. If we can function just fine as physical organisms, though, if we can survive in the physical world without experiencing anything, this alterity Riley speaks of, why would our design include this extra experience stuff? The explanation must rest somewhere outside the physical world. Dun, dun, dun.
Dun, 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 dun. That's the Law and Order theme song. Never mind.
Let's go through it in 4 steps. Step 1, we know it's true that we experience things, that we know what it's like to eat stuff and see stuff. Step 1. Step 2, it's logically possible to imagine a physical world functioning just fine without knowing what it's like to eat stuff and see stuff. That doesn't mean that we aren't eating stuff and seeing stuff. Those activities are necessary to our survival, but we don't have to experience them and have feelings about them. We don't have to know what it's like to do them. We just have to be able to do them. Step 3. So, facts about what it's like to experience stuff, like eating and seeing, must be somewhere beyond or outside of facts about the physical world. You see what I mean?
I guess. It seems like, I don't know.
We have these experiences that aren't helpful to us on a physical basis. We could get through as these physical zombies without these experiences. So that means that these experiences must have some meaning or purpose or role outside of the physical world, because we don't need them to interact with the physical world. Step 4, materialism is false. Our physical brains cannot fully explain our extra physical experiences. Riley's doing a dance, an extra physical experience dance. And so there must be some sort of unknown psychophysical laws.
Metaphysical.
Type of
Psychophysical.
Psychophysical.
Psychophysical. So what could these laws be? Tracking these down is a truly complex and mysterious process. They could sit somewhere in the world of quantum mechanics, for example.
Oh, please no.
We're not going there today,
Thank you.
but we are going there eventually.
Guys.
The teeny tiny atomic and subatomic worlds that Olivia truly apparently loathes are
afraid
full of funky happenings that lead physicists to wonder if there are parallel universes, for example. So maybe the mystery of consciousness is somehow tied to those mysteries. Again, we're leaving that question for another day.
The
Hopefully
Mandela.
you guys can come back and do quantum consciousness with me.
Great.
Today I want to close by considering one particular theory in the metaphysical and philosophical spirit of the criticisms that we've heard so far from Noe and Chalmers. And this is panpsychism. Any guesses on what panpsychism is?
It's when you think everything at once.
It sounds really painful, actually.
It's my worst guess.
Thanks. Thanks for putting the effort in.
If pan normally means like
All
yeah.
of the things.
All.
James is on the right track here.
I'm a linguist.
He's a cunning.
is this like
Oh no.
are we all on the same I don't know.
Wavelength?
I'll just give it away. We're borrowing here from our last philosopher for the day, and that is William Seeger. Panpsychism is the argument that everything in the world and in existence is conscious. So, James, you were close, but
Oh, sweet.
yeah, not that we are having all thoughts at the same time, but that all things are able to think. This includes the traffic
Suck
light
it,
that we
Olivia.
talked about. It includes the strawberry that we talked about. It includes what did Olivia do?
What did I do?
You lost. I won.
And now she can suck it.
Every time James wins,
Apparently.
apparently it's a loss for
I
you.
didn't know we were competing.
At
I'm
everything.
trying to take your job.
I told you you couldn't have it.
So the strawberry is consciousness, the squirrel who eats the strawberry has consciousness, the coyote who eats the squirrel, everything has consciousness. Every step along the chain, from the tiniest atom on up, has some mental component to it.
If it's living.
No.
No.
Traffic lights, rocks,
Everything.
Tennis rackets.
See, this is like literally one of my biggest fears.
Ooh.
Is that this is an actual thing, and this whole time we've been
Ventriloquist's
alive.
dolls.
We've just don't even go there. But like, yeah, this idea that like, what if like all of like every time I sit in this chair, what if this chair is like, F you, Olivia? Why'd you sit in me? Like, you know?
All
And
the
like
more
things
reason
feel
to be
sad when I
good
go to
your
the store and I don't
stuff.
pick them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I always thought that when I was little. I was like, oh, I feel so bad.
Yeah.
Dolls and toys, especially.
Yeah,
Right? Anyway,
Toy
but that's
Story.
not exactly what we're saying here.
Yeah.
We're not proving that Woody can walk and talk.
Toy Story
You're
is
not,
real.
but
All right.
Because they're not like us.
Let's start the argument. Imagine we're putting together a brain. We start. Yeah, we're gonna assemble a brain here. So put your gloves on.
like the
Snap.
edible models
Snap.
in ninth grade.
Yeah.
When you would like, make like DNA models. Brain models.
Oh yeah, but
We
this
can-
will be
we
more
can bring
fun.
out some.
Yeah, it's gonna be really fun.
I want to
Less
make a
popsicle
real brain.
sticks. Okay, let's start real small with a tiny amoeba-sized brain. Little microorganism. It certainly isn't conscious the way we are. Amoebas have little brains. They do little amoeba things. I guess we wouldn't call them brains, but they're able to accomplish tasks, and there's some sort of
They have functioning organs,
they're
Right.
functional. Yeah.
organelles.
So, and we, theoretically, evolutionarily, began as these microorganisms. It's difficult to imagine that amoeba having preferences or experiences the way we do, though. So let's just add a little bit, just a little bit, to that brain, and we get something like algae.
Ooh.
Your favorite
Bloom.
blooming sea organism?
Loves.
Yep.
Water
Maybe not my
organism?
favorite, but it's up there.
Does,
10.
Does algae top 10? Does algae have likes? I look forward to hearing that list. Does algae have likes and dislikes?
They like the sun.
Does it have a crush on the cute starfish though?
I hope so.
Does it prefer this tide pool to that tide pool?
No, because they're not as egotistical as us.
Right, but you're right, James. To a certain
Materialism.
extent, plants do have more, or algae as a kind of photosynthesizing being, right, has preference for the sun, but not to the degree that we have preferences. So let's go back and let's go back to the laboratory and add just a bit, just a little bit more to our hypothetical brain. We get an oyster. Any preferences yet?
I'm thinking about this preferences stuff. I feel like they do have preferences. I feel like if they didn't have preferences, especially plants and stuff, we'd be able to, accurately guess everything that they would do. Or like an amoeba, we know the track it's going to take across our microscope. If they don't have preferences,
They have
It's
tiny little
all
preferences.
Functional.
Yes.
They do. They have tiny preferences. We're like, what are you doing, dude?
Not
What are you
nearly
doing,
on the
little amoeba?
complexity of ours, right?
Yeah.
So as we move from algae to oyster to crab to rockfish through the entire Chesapeake Bay's ecosystem, this is for our local Maryland listeners, Terrapin the heron. At what stage do we say a creature now is conscious, though? So as James is talking about, there may be preferences, but functional preferences. When do we have consciousness? Which of these creatures is then conscious? At what point do we say the creature has become conscious?
Or woke, as we like to say.
Right. When does it become woke? When I drop a few brain cells into the oyster to get the crab, is that when consciousness suddenly swings into being? Or when we drop a few brain cells into the heron to get the primate, also native to the Chesapeake Bay, chimpanzees?
Is that for real?
No, it's not. Of course it's not.
Yeah, we don't have monkeys up
Fake
here.
news.
We are the monkeys.
Oh yeah.
And if these brain cells are all physical and consciousness is non-physical, where does it come from? Let's think about a baby, my little baby, Corinne back at home.
Aww.
Did consciousness just fly into her developing head somewhere during her growth in Katie's womb?
It happens in the birth canal. It's magic.
It
That's when
happens
it
in the
goes-
birth canal. Pops right
when
in.
we went into the room, in that period of time when she was born and you were sleeping, and we taught her.
Oh, you were teaching
heads,
her all those
genitals, and
songs?
toes.
Yeah.
We also sprinkled a little bit of.
You sprinkled some consciousness on her.
Consciousness,
Some
yeah.
divine
So you are the
consciousness.
Sandman of consciousness.
Yes.
And you,
It's sprinkled on.
of the billions of human beings on Earth, you are
Mr.
going around
Sandman.
Santa Clausing them with magic consciousness.
It's been passed down.
Dust.
Whoa, we're gonna
Magic
have to
birth
pay
canal.
royalty on that. If you-
Yeah, that is.
Yeah,
There's
damn
spies
it.
for Mascap everywhere. So, really though, this is the question. If the baby isn't conscious at some point in the early zygoteness of it, When does the baby become conscious? When does that consciousness suddenly pop into the baby's head? I'll prove this another way. If you believe in the well-documented theory of evolution, all of us have evolved up from those little amoebas. At what point did consciousness suddenly swoop down into our heads? It's fundamentally illogical that my baby should just suddenly, consciousness should just pop in to her head.
No,
It
it's
makes
like
no
ever
sense.
present, right?
So if consciousness doesn't swoop into our heads as we are physically evolving or physically developing in mom's womb, then it must have been there the whole time.
So all these cartoons, I got Osmosis Jones and all this stuff taking place inside of our bodies, or white blood cells having preferences and stuff. That's not too far off of the mark.
Not according to panpsychism. If this is all illogical the way we're talking about, then consciousness must be a fundamental property of everything, everywhere.
So, what about non-living things? We're talking about this
yeah.
living-wise,
I was
right?
about to say,
they're
so-
going, but
Yes.
how does this evolve? how are
Because
these things
technically,
evolving?
my baby is composed of non-living atoms,
Inorganic
molecules,
yeah.
inorganic stuff that suddenly becomes conscious. I mean, I am.
Yeah,
We
it's
all
crazy.
are. And so everything must be conscious. Traffic lights, tennis rackets, the whole 9 yards.
So consciousness isn't an argument for living. In this, you can't use consciousness as an argument for something being alive.
Right.
Consciousness is everything that is.
Everything that exists.
That's
So,
interesting.
but Olivia's worried about how the chair feels about her. Why doesn't my coffee table suddenly decide that that doesn't feel like holding my teacup today and just buck it off onto the floor?
Yeah, I really feel like
Why doesn't the traffic light decide to light up all 3 lamps to flirt with the billboard across the street? Why doesn't the strawberry roll off the table and take itself for a walk?
you had a lot of fun writing that, didn't
Yeah,
you?
I did. The argument goes that there are varying levels of consciousness. More complex systems, like our human brains, which include the already complex systems of animal brains, are capable of exhibiting higher functions of consciousness, like preferences and choices. Aristotle said, right? We have the plant brain and the animal brain and the human rational brain. Less complex systems, like gravel and kumquats, are less capable...
Kumquats.
Yes, the funniest of fruits.
They really are.
They are less capable of displaying these preferences. Rocks exhibit no preferences. Plants, as James is pointing out, have some preferences. Which shape they grow in, which direction they grow in. Animals have lots of preferences. My dog won't eat dinner unless we bribe her with treats.
With dessert?
Yes, with cheeses and things. Yes. And humans have far too many preferences. So you can see the scale of preferences, but going all the way down to the preferenceless rock. Just read the comments sections of pretty much anything.
Yeah, we've definitely got
realize-
it. We've got it the worst.
How preferency we have become in our development. And while we're on the subject, I want to thank all of our listeners who've taken the time to rate and review this podcast
Yeah.
and express their very positive preference for
I'm
what
really
we have
glad.
to say here.
that you're conscious.
You're real.
And
Don't
on that
forget
note, we are going to close off our discussion of the thinking fruit. I think we've arrived. We have made this journey.
I love it.
Done all the thinking I could possibly do today.
Insulted a few psychologists along the way, perhaps.
I mean,
And
what can you do?
let's close the door here on our mindless zombies and thinking fruit. Olivia, if you would please grandmaster us out of this.
Woo! I hereby adjourn and declare closed this meeting of the Secret Order of Alchemical Actors until such a time as we get together and do it again.
That's right. We encourage you, if you've been fascinated by the things that we've been saying, as we have been fascinated by sharing them and discussing them with you, to subscribe to this podcast, to visit our website, www.occultconfessions.com. Olivia, they can reach us on social media how?
On our Facebook, you can look us up by Occult Confessions, and then on Twitter, you can find us at Podcast Occult.
Yes, and just one more reminder, we are looking for those sweet, sweet stars. Any number of stars. Hop
All
on
the
and review
stars.
us on iTunes. You don't have to say anything. You can just click a star.
Actions speak louder than
Yes.
words.
Please, I'm
Multiple
begging
stars.
you.
Yes, James really is hungry for stars. And we will see you next week. Next week's episode, we are going to feature. Is it multiple personalities?
Yeah, that's next week, right?
Really?
Or it's 5.
Frederick Myers, I think, is the next one.
Yes.
Because
wait.
5, and then it's quantum physics.
Quantum
to
physics is
close
what we're
it
going to
all
close
out.
out with. So we will be talking about multiple personalities. Is that right?
Oh, God.
James is checking? No?
I gave up.
Okay, join us next week. We'll be talking about multiple personalities.
We think.
And Olivia loses her mind.
and how these actually further demonstrate the concept that we, in fact, are more than our brains. See you next time on Occult Confessions.
Woo!